All right, so we've gone over big oil, we've gone over big tech, and now here is I'm not going to put them in order, but these are the three biggest influences, the three biggest buyers: big tech, big oil, and the pro-Israel lobbies. So this is a video by Tommy G. I actually don't know much about him, but I guess he's an independent investigator. The video is titled "Investigating Israeli Influence on Politics." So let's see what he has to say.
Israel is essential to the security of Jews worldwide.
America has never flinched from its commitment to the state of Israel.
America and Israel have a special friendship.
I gotta be careful the way I say this. They're gonna try to ethnically cleanse Gaza. They're talking about basically removing 2.5 million people from there, okay? There are some serious questions here, Patrick.
What's your reaction to seeing those photos?
Horrific. Last week, they even went to a point further than starvation called famine, worst food hunger you can get into.
Wow. Highest number of child amputees worldwide. I mean, it's just sickening that we're doing this to kids. What crime did they commit? We gave Netanyahu a blank check.
Would it be your impression that many of our politicians are under Israeli influence?
One thing about that starving and famine thing, so whenever you officially cross over the line from just starvation to famine is usually where you're past the point of no return, which means long-term damage is happening from your lack of food, and you will never fully recover. Some will, but it's a line that you cross. And the people that are starving in Gaza right now, which that is happening, don't let the administration fool you. That is happening. There's plenty of journalists, but there's really not, because they keep killing them. But people are starving, and once you go to famine, it gets past the point of no return. These people will live the rest of their lives, no matter how long or short they may be, suffering the consequences of long-term starvation, including children.
That's such a mild way to put it.
Mainstream media is been taken over by extremist groups. Most of what you see is either AI or footage used from Syria.
The IDF commanders we spoke to said they are the most ethical army in the world. They're the most precise.
Wait, what was that, though? What was that?
What you see has been taken...
Okay.
That's such a mild way to put it.
Mainstream media is been taken over by extremist groups. Most of what you see is either AI or footage used from...
Okay, so they're saying all these images are AI generated. Very possible. But one thing I do want to say is something Trump just recently said. He was confronted about someone throwing, it was a video of someone throwing trash, like a bag of trash, outside the top floor of the White House, like outside of a window. And he said, if anything bad happens, just blame AI. If anything bad happens, blame AI. Trump. Okay. Yeah, so check this out, guys.
There's a video that is circulating online now of the White House where a window is open to the residents upstairs, and somebody is throwing a big bag out the window. Have you seen this?
No, that's probably AI generated. So, actually, you can't open the windows. You know why? They're all heavily armored and bulletproof.
So that's a fake video?
Well, it's got to be, because I know every window up there. The last place I'd be doing it is that, because there's cameras all over the place, right, including yours. No, but every window, I've never seen a window that's... In fact, my wife was complaining about it the other day. She said, love to have a little fresh air come in, but you can't. They're bulletproof. And number one, they're sealed, and number two, each window weighs about 600 pounds. You have to be pretty strong to open them up. No, that has to be... Where was the window? Let me see.
Maybe from the renovations.
Which is the window?
It looks like this is on the 15th Street side, I think. Yeah. So right here.
Yeah, those windows are sealed. Those windows are they're all sealed. You can't open them.
What you were saying regarding the federal...
It's the kind of thing they do. And one of the problems we have with AI, it's both good and bad. If something happens really bad, just blame AI. but also they create things. You know, it works both.
So if something really bad happens, just blame AI. That's the president of the United States saying that. And the thing about AI is it's getting really scary. It's getting really, you know, when it first came out, it was like, dude, this is obviously AI, you know. But even some old people, you know, like would still get fooled by it, you know. But nowadays, like, it's getting really hard to tell. And it's pretty dystopian because you can't trust anything you see anymore. You have to take everything with a grain of salt, and you have to really be aware and just be vigilant. You know, you really have to pay attention. And even then, you're still going to get fooled probably. But the president of the United States said himself, if anything really bad happens, just blame AI. So I find it hard to believe that all the photos of child starvation in Gaza are just AI generated. I find that hard to believe, you know. But anyways, let's get back to that investigation.
Syria?
The IDF commanders we spoke to said they are the most ethical army in the world. They're the most precise.
That's complete bullshit.
I do know that Hamas would have their weapons depots under hospitals.
There's a reason that Hamas operates out of schools and hospitals.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Did you guys see that? It like almost didn't play the ad. I got my hopes up for a second.
With Israel being questioned now more than ever, I went to Washington, D.C. to investigate the claim of whether Israel is our greatest ally and looked in particular into the influence of AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, on our elected officials. And we also examined the war in Gaza, asking whether Israel truly lives up to its claim as the world's most ethical army, or whether we are witnessing serious human rights violations funded in part by our U.S. tax dollars. To look into this,
What do you mean funded in part? We give Israel's... In part, we're like the majority of Israel funding. We're the reason they have all these weapons in the first place.
With U.S. senators like Ron Johnson and Rand Paul, with IDF soldiers, a Jewish woman turned anti-Zionist, and one of the greatest conspiracy researchers of our era, Ian Carroll. I ask the questions that are scary to ask, and I do so as a proud American. Let's get to it.
I like how he's, you heard him, he's interviewing both sides, so that's pretty cool.
So this is one of the scariest pieces that we ever worked on, and it's crazy as a journalist that you have to be afraid to ask questions or investigate the truth. So let's just start off with some ballpark statements. I'm not anti-Semitic. I hope all Israelis and Jewish people around the world are happy, healthy, and thriving, as I do for other people as well. It's possible that I'm going to be called anti-Semitic from doing this video, and that's not true. I don't hate anybody. There's not one person in this world I hate, and you can't tell me I do. What is the point of having...
The problem is they will call you anti-Semitic for also wanting the Palestinians to be happy, healthy, and thriving. You know, you can say that, hey, like, I want you to be happy and healthy. I also want these people to be happy and healthy, and you will get stones thrown at you.
Platform if you're not going to do something that's absolutely necessary, which I believe this is. So what we're going to do is use very American principles, which is questioning the narrative, questioning our government, and questioning foreign governments. We're allowed to do that. People have died for that right, and people will continue to die to fight for that right. So this is to freedom of speech. This is to investigation. Now, folks, let's jump into the video.
It's a great disclaimer.
You got arrested right around here.
Well, inside in the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee chambers.
You're a lieutenant colonel.
Yep.
Ex-Green Beret.
Yep.
Served this country.
25 years.
What was that like getting arrested?
It felt.
Oh, did y'all see that video? We'll let them play this out, but yeah, two like combat. Pretty sure they're both combat veterans, and they went to the Senate Committee on Affairs and just say, hey guys, let's not support this genocide. To be fair, they interrupted the meeting, yeah, but you know they didn't allow them to talk at all. They just arrested them. Just kind of crazy.
Right.
This is Anthony Aguilar. He served as a U.S. Special Forces soldier for over 20 years, and after the horrific things he witnessed as a mercenary manning the aid stations in Gaza, he has decided to come forth as a whistleblower, sounding the alarm for what he says are massive human rights violations. Here's what he had to say.
There are some members of our Congress, in the Senate and the House, that are compromised by a foreign government. I don't know what the compromise is, whether it's, pictures of them doing something embarrassing, if
Epstein's
it's money,
list.
if it's
Epstein.
Promise of a few, like, hey, we back you for this next position. I don't know what it is.
Folks, the Israel-Palestine conflict stretches back generations, but for today's episode, we will be focusing on the past 2 years. Let's rewind back to October 7th, 20...
Yeah, and just so everyone's aware, even people that are, free Palestine and all that, they'll say like this ongoing genocide that's been happening for 2 years. You need to know that ever since Israel's formation, they've been committing human rights violations against the Palestinian people. And I'm talking about killing unarmed civilians, women and children, horrible things. Look up the list of war crimes. Look up the list of war crimes that Israel has committed since its formation. It's on Wikipedia. It's on other websites. Wikipedia gives a very expansive list, just every single thing, just plenty of genocides. Or really, it's one genocide, but plenty of incidents. Massacres is what they called it. Massacres, plenty. Kind of crazy that this one little nation has done this much, But let's continue.
When Hamas executed what's widely regarded as the worst terrorist attack in Israeli history. A coordinated operation used rocket barrages, motorized armed paragliders, and foot soldiers that swept through Israel, killing approximately 1,200 Israelis and taking around 250 hostage. Similar to how Americans responded to 9/11, Israel reacted to the horrific carnage by mounting a full-scale military operation, with their main objectives being to rescue Israeli hostages, eliminate Hamas military and leadership, and prevent Hamas from ever again being able to threaten Israel. As of late, some people have begun questioning the Israeli official narrative of October 7th.
Was there a stand-down order?
According to IDF testimony from the Knesset, the legislative body of Israel, IDF soldiers claimed they were told to stand down from patrol on the morning of the attack. Adding fuel to the controversy, Netanyahu's right-wing coalition voted against having a state-run inquiry into October 7th, despite polls reporting that roughly 70% of Israelis wanted one. That has helped spark conspiracy theories suggesting Israeli intelligence may have had prior knowledge of the attack. After all, Mossad is widely regarded as the best intelligence.
Very similar to how American intelligence had prior knowledge to the attack of the towers, and Pearl Harbor, and, pretty much every major crisis, so very similar. And it's funny how they're drawing parallels to 9/11, that their whole thing is, this is our 9/11, this is our 9/11. And the evidence comes out and you say, oh, well, maybe it is your 9/11, seeing as you knew about it.
Agency on the planet, and the level of surveillance they had over Gaza is incredible.
Are there IDF soldiers that are purposely targeting civilians and just kind of willy-nilly shooting people?
So willy-nilly shooting, yes. The IDF utilize machine gun fire, shooting machine guns, shooting bullets at people to control the crowd.
An Israeli newspaper report saying that soldiers were ordered to shoot at unarmed civilians waiting for food aid in Gaza.
I experienced that with a young...
I wonder if he's going to show all the videos. I've seen way too many videos of children getting shot in the back of the head, snipers celebrating when they shoot an unarmed civilian. Way too many videos. Let's see where this goes. I'm going to try not to interrupt it as much, guys. I'm sorry. I am very passionate.
Damir in distribution site number 3. And this young boy, without shoes, who had walked 10 to 12 kilometers, and when he came up and he got meager scraps from the ground, not a box of food, not a meal, he came and thanked us. He and others were killed. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has come forward with a press release last week where they showed, oh, this young boy that Mr. Aguilar said he saw on this date, we scoured the earth and we found him, and here he is. The boy that they featured in that is not the boy that I saw on the 28th of May.
So it's propaganda.
It is propaganda. They are lying.
Now, GHF, the organization running the aid station that Anthony worked with, came out with a statement refuting Anthony's testimony by poking holes in at least one aspect of his story. They say the kid that Anthony claimed had died, a little 8-year-old boy named Abdul, is actually alive and well, and they have video proof of it, and therefore we should believe none of Anthony's testimony. However, let's also share...
Do we think that's the same kid? So, different haircut. Look at the facial structure, right? First of all, he looks really hungry in that picture, so it might be hard to tell. But looking at the facial structure, and then we have this kid. Look at the ears. Look at the nose. Look at the forehead. Look at the eye shape. You know, it's possible. It's possible it's the same kid. But they scoured the earth. They could have just found a kid that looks very similar. It does look a little different. Anyways.
They have video proof of it, and therefore we should believe none of Anthony's testimony.
There's that one.
However, let's also share Anthony's side of the story. He would make the case that unfortunately the lead reporter investigating whether the kid was actually alive or not, Mohammed Salama, was killed in an airstrike by the IDF when the Nasser hospital was bombed live on camera multiple times. This horrific bombing of one of the last functioning hospitals in Gaza.
Did you guys hear that? Dude, I know we're trying to talk about influence on politics. But hospital bombed. I don't think those two words should be in the same sentence, you know? But their argument is that, and they've also bombed schools, so their argument is that Hamas is hiding in these hospitals and schools using civilians as cover or whatever. Yeah, so, you know.
Showed aid workers and journalists being killed. When asked about this, both our politicians and IDF soldier contacts maintained that the aid workers and journalists were Hamas. Here's the footage of the men who died in the airstrikes. Tell me in the comments if you think they are Hamas.
So my name is Doron Kedar. I'm a sergeant major in the Israeli Defense Forces, today in reserves.
This is Doron Kedar. He is an IDF veteran of 20 years, and he is currently serving as a Special Forces reservist. He is the host of the Doron Kedar podcast and a strong voice advocating for the Israeli perspective.
Mainstream media is been taken over by extremist groups from the far left, wokeism, Islamist groups, socialist groups, Marxist groups.
In my experience speaking with IDF soldiers and pro-Israeli
Yeah, but what about me and people like me who are not Marxist, socialist, or far left? We're seeing through the shit too, so...
There seems to be a common playbook when it comes to tackling any criticisms of Israel. In my conversations with these guys, I've been called an anti-Semite, a Jew hater, told I've been thinking like a Nazi, and even accused these guys
I respected you when we first started speaking. You seemed open-minded, but you are just spewing anti-Semitic and insane rhetoric. Again, answer the question, who is to blame if Hamas rejects this deal? Are you going to blame Israel?
Called an anti-Semite, a Jew hater, told I've been thinking like a Nazi, and even accused of bearing responsibility for the horrible attack recently in Manchester, simply for asking questions that I think most of us have. But folks, I am a lover of all people, Israelis included, and these smears I think most of us have. But folks, I am a lover of...
Said, don't be a weenie. I love all people. What a response, dude.
People, Israelis included, and these smears will not stop me from questioning what I see.
Most of what you see is either AI or footage used from Syria and or Iraq and or other countries.
What do you think the true number of dead civilians is?
That is probably looking more at maybe 20%, maybe 30%.
By war standards, it's still pretty darn high, right?
No, the opposite. What they will tell you is that Israel's ratio for civilian to combatant is actually much lower than the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. Basically, our ratio has been 1 combatant to maybe 2 civilians.
The case Doron is making here is that the numbers out there that were allegedly leaked...
So for every 2 civilians you kill, you get 1 Hamas. There's got to be a better way, you know? Got to be a better way.
In Israel are actually false, and the civilian casualty rates are not so horrible, and that these numbers are fabricated by woke/Hamas.
This is the Associated Press. I spoke earlier. I like the Associated Press. They seem to be pretty decently unbiased, at least compared to the rest of them, you know. This is footage from Gaza. And also, you look at Gaza before and after. I'm sure, you know, this video seems to be very in-depth, so it'll bring it up. But like, look in the background. Entire buildings flattened, you know. And now Trump is planning on making Gaza into a high-tech strip, like super city, and you know, building Trump hotels over there. And it's very convenient. Once again, you can't draw a direct cause and effect, but you can say, okay, they've been leveling buildings, completely destroying buildings, like to the ground, and now they're talking about, we want to build Trump towers here and Trump hotels and make it a super high-tech city and continue to, you know, obviously continue to ethnically cleanse the area as well.
Influenced media. So we sat down with Dr. Aziz Rahman, a man in Milwaukee that actually volunteered at Nasser Hospital in Gaza for 2 weeks, and we hear what he saw boots on the ground.
Dr. Aziz Rahman, I practice here in Wisconsin. Yeah, I was in June 2025. I was in Gaza at Nasser Hospital, which is in Khan Yunis.
That's bravery right there, man. Cushy doctor life in Wisconsin, went to go volunteer in a war zone. Mad respect.
In the south of Gaza. Probably saw thousands of patients. I probably treated hundreds of patients. I actually did surgeries myself on maybe 50 to 75 patients.
The IDF commanders we spoke to said
he's visibly
they're the
nervous.
most ethical army in the world, they're the most precise, that the minimal amount of civilian casualties are being expended with them. What would you say to that?
That's complete bullshit.
Chapter 1, AIPAC. Let's get it.
This is Brendan from the organization Open Secrets. His group is a nonpartisan watchdog that tracks the money flowing through politics, and he helps me break down the numbers connected to AIPAC.
What is AIPAC and how do they function?
They make contributions to candidates. A traditional PAC they are able to make contributions directly to candidates. They collect money from their members or other people who are interested in their cause and support their policies, and then they deliver it to the candidates.
There are members of our Congress that are compromised. That is a fact. Those that are compromised because they get the backing of AIPAC and they get the backing of Israel, their voices are amplified. You can't fight against that propaganda machine. It's huge.
So there's this Israeli commando I've been talking to, and I've talked on the phone with before, and he was going to consider doing an interview, and then he said it's pointless. Everyone just turning into an empire of Nazis pushed by Nick Fuentes, Kanye West, Candace Owens, and more.
The first problem is that every American moron retard wants to talk about, and I even say this to people, it's always, oh, you're taking my tax money. Shut the up, dude. You don't know where the your tax money is. You wouldn't even know where your tax money is, where you don't even read any of the bills. You sign all the bills, and then you want to pay more tax for gas. You want to do all this bullshit. But then when something big happens in the world, that's where my tax money is going. Shut the up. Nobody knows where the tax money is going.
It's proven millions of dollars coming from our tax money go to Israel and Ukraine. That's proven. What's also, there's this guy, I don't know his name, we'll figure it out in a little bit, but he goes on Omegle or Omi TV or whatever, and sets his location to Israel. He's from Palestine, and he tries talking to these people. A very nice guy, has never ever said anything bad, right? Like never been like fuck you Israeli or anything like that. No, instead it's very like, hi, how are you doing? I'm from Palestine. And then you'll see the videos, they'll be like, now they know who he is. It's so weird how these people work. They'll be like, they're acting like fans, like, oh, hi, I know who you are, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, so do you think the war in Palestine's a good thing? And they're like, yeah, kill them all. And then it's just, there's too many of them for it to be fake too. Like, and freaking Sneeko, he went on Omi TV just recently and did like the Israel thing, and yeah, same thing. He didn't do it the way that guy did it, but he was just asking questions, and I challenge you to do it yourself, man, for real, and we might react to that too. But I want to see where this guy is going with this. But that's right here is an IDF soldier saying, "Fuck you! You don't know where your tax money is going, even if you think."
Ian Carroll is one of the internet's top conspiracy analysts. His critics label him an anti-Semite spreading false information about Israel, but to others he is a fearless journalist that speaks on what some perceive as an extremely strong Zionist pressure on our government. Here's what he had to say.
There are 100 U.S. senators. Last year, 93 out of 100 U.S. senators were people whose campaigns had been funded by Israel, AIPAC, and the Israel lobby.
And that's what I was saying earlier. If you corrupt the legislative branch, doesn't matter who the president is, And in this particular example, Trump is also corrupted. So Trump is getting away with all this because everyone else is bought too. Nice mustache, by the way, dude. No, this guy's cool. I actually have never heard of this guy.
3 out of 100 U.S. senators were taking money from a group that represents a foreign government and foreign interests in order to operate our government on behalf of someone else. And they all work here, in this building.
This is Representative Ro Khanna from California, and he does not take AIPAC money according to the website Track AIPAC. Here's what he had to say.
It's too much. I mean, it's too much. All these super PACs and PACs are too much. I don't take a dime of PAC money, lobbyist money, since I've been in Congress. And I don't believe in super PACs. And so I can vote my conscience. But if you have people who have a particular point of view, in AIPAC's case, they're basically whatever Netanyahu does is right. That's their point of view. And they're saying, okay, if you don't take that view, we may come after you. We may have millions of dollars spent against you.
Now, ask any American content creator what the scariest subject to cover is, and the answer is Israel. Even YouTubers I know who support Israel.
For what does it... Hold on. I got a full screen for this. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world, yet lose his soul? These people are taking money to get into power, but then you have to do what they tell you to do. And he mentioned it. Hopefully it goes into further detail, but... Say that I was a senator, or I was running for Senate, and I took money from AIPAC, and they helped me win. Because they really do help people win. Just like that little picture it showed, not 93, but 175 of candidates that were supported by AIPAC ended up winning their primaries, and Ron DeSantis was the cover of that. Ron DeSantis is one of them, right? Imagine if I was one of those guys, and I eventually had enough, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't go against my conscience. I'm going to vote against Israel, this bill. They, in my next election, or in my next campaign for my next term, they're going to put millions of dollars into another candidate specifically to make me get out of office. Because I betrayed them, which is true. I took their money and then I didn't do what they wanted me to do, which is betrayal. Don't take their money, you know? So this guy, Ro Khanna, first time hearing about him, but I know about Track AIPAC, and if what he said is true, he hasn't taken any money, good for him. But also, people like that, they were threatening Marjorie Taylor Greene. Sorry, excuse me. They were threatening Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she ended up resigning. But they were, specifically the Trump administration, but also AIPAC was saying, we're going to spend millions of dollars to make sure you don't get back into office. And pretty sure they were trying to prosecute her for something too, even though all she did was vote with Thomas Massie on something. She betrayed them, you know. She was on their side, and then it was the Epstein files that turned her against it, and she voted with her conscience, and she paid the price, and she ended up resigning for it, right? So that's the whole situation we're dealing with here. Wow, what a freeze frame! That damn flag.
Their channels were shadow banned for months after covering them. And folks, the plot around free speech thickens. News just broke that Larry Ellison, co-founder of Oracle, will be buying TikTok, a platform where young people can freely exchange unfiltered ideas.
Larry Ellison is a Zionist, by the way.
No Israel connection here, right? Wrong. Ellison is one of the IDF's largest private donors, giving the army tens of millions of dollars through Friends of the IDF, a non-profit that brands itself as a non-political, non-military organization, but somehow also is the official U.S. partner of Israel's soldiers.
Is it hard to trace who's getting money from AIPAC and how much?
There's a reason why TikTok is even stricter than Instagram, and Instagram is also, Mark Zuckerberg is a Jew. But Instagram is more free speech, which I'm thankful for. TikTok, you cannot say anything. It's completely, like, you can't even use the juice box emoji. And juice box emoji is slang for Jew or whatever. You can't even do that. Literally, even if your post is saying, I heart the juice box emoji, it'll still ban it. It's just an instant takedown for the juice box emoji. They are super strict about, there's no free speech on TikTok, is what I'm trying to say here. And that happened after Larry Ellison bought it, who sent tens of millions of dollars to the IDF.
It's pretty straightforward. You can tell, if their PAC makes a contribution to a candidate must report that and must report where it came from.
Can we see some of the numbers, like to what level AIPAC is funding our politicians?
AIPAC would fall under a what we call ideology single issue. So these are groups that are focused in on particular issues.
So this is the top contributors for 2023-2024.
Yes.
So it's fair to say that actually the left was much more heavily funded across the board, and that if you break it down further to AIPAC, it was about, what is that, 25 million to the Democrats and about 17 million to the Republicans.
So yeah, left and right is both compromised. And apparently, according to this, left is more compromised. But regardless, they both have tens of millions of dollars in their pockets because of Israel, because of AIPAC. AIPAC sent them that money, so they vote for what AIPAC wants, which is, whatever Netanyahu does is right, like they said. I mean, that's basically what AIPAC believes in.
Do you want to take a second to touch on something that I think is really important? I'm a huge advocate for mental health on this page. You guys already know, especially.
And you might have been wondering, who are all these senators that are taking money from the Israel lobby? Well, if you wanted a list of all-timers, our boy Joe Biden would be at the very top with 4.2 million during his career. But you'd also find Hillary Clinton, 2.3 million. You'd find Kamala Harris, 2.3 million. You might think, oh, Trump's not on there. No, that's just because he was never a senator. So you'd have to go to a different webpage to find that number.
So would someone like Miriam Adelson appear on a list like this?
Yes.
I'm curious what her figures are, because I've seen that it reported allegedly that between 100 million and 200 million plus to Trump from the Adelson family.
She was, in 2024, she was the number 3 donor, behind Musk and Mellon.
Miriam and Sheldon would come into the White House probably almost more than anybody.
The Adelsons are some of the wealthiest Jewish billionaires in the world. Now it is the Adelson, just Miriam. Her husband Sheldon died. They have a long, wealthy relationship with Donald Trump, a very long and wealthy relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as with anyone and everyone else that is associated with the Zionist project and Jewish causes.
This is Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina, and according to Track AIPAC, she's taken about 130,000 from AIPAC link groups. Wow. Here's what she had to say.
No, compared to your colleagues, you're minimal.
Am I low?
Yes,
Okay.
which is good. Do you think Americans have a right to fear that AIPAC is too powerful and that some people would say that it feels like we're almost controlled by Israel?
No, we're not. And you can't buy votes, okay, when you're up here legislating. Yes, we have to run for re-election. Yes, we have to raise money to do that. I've never gotten pressured by AIPAC. I've never said, hey, you have to do this, and I've never...
So it's not some insidious meeting in a parking garage where a guy with an AIPAC hat comes to you?
No, I would definitely not accept money from anyone threatening me, and that's just not a thing.
That's out of the mouth of someone who's taken $130,000 from AIPAC.
Mr. Johnson, Tom.
Hey,
nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Thanks for seeing us.
Certainly. Rep Hank Johnson is my handle, by the way. At Rep Hank Johnson.
First guy to do the good plug, so check him out, guys.
Yeah, check it out.
This is Representative Hank Johnson from Georgia, and he does not take AIPAC money, according to the website Track It.
And what's funny is, I don't want to get it wrong, but I'm pretty sure I just saw a video of this guy, and he was asked what he thought about the Minneapolis shooting, and he said he should be tried in court, and he said it was at the very least have his badge stripped, kind of that perspective. So it's interesting he doesn't take any money, and also that ICE is trained by IDF, and a lot of ICE is ex-IDF soldiers, Israeli American people, so like dual citizens. So there's an interesting connection there.
Here's what he had to say.
The AIPAC PAC is powerful. The money that they put in.
You see that swallow there? He's like, I gotta be careful what I say. Watch that.
PAC is powerful. The money that.
He's like, fuck, why did I let this guy interview me? I'm gonna get assassinated or something. Look at that swallow, dude.
AIPAC PAC is powerful. The money that they put into elections can be influential. And so politicians do pay attention to that.
What a political answer.
Hey there.
Hello.
How are you?
Come on in. Good. How you doing?
Good. Nice to meet you. Tommy.
Tommy.
How are
Good
you?
to meet you, Medea.
Medea Benjamin is a Jewish woman who has been to Israel and once considered herself proud of Israel until her conscience forced her to stand against it. She's the leader of activist group Code Pink, and she's made it her mission to call out U.S. politicians for taking AIPAC money and enabling the destruction in Gaza. Here's what she had to say.
Would it be your impression that many of our politicians are under Israeli influence?
That's such a mild way to put it. I mean, they are bought off by AIPAC, and that's not even the most important part. The most important part is they're scared to death of AIPAC. They're afraid that if they become the target, well, look at what they did to Cori Bush. Look at what they did to Jamal Bowman, and you can go back. Look what they did to Jewish Congressman Andy Levin, just because he said some mild things about Netanyahu. And so these members of Congress don't want to be in the crosshairs.
We've heard a few times now politicians mention Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman seemingly getting pushed out of office by AIPAC. Here's what Cori and Jamal had to say on the matter.
I got a message from someone in the community. AIPAC said to tell you that they know you're not going to change your stance. They just want you to be silent.
They are very strategic and very unapologetic.
Now let's break this down by highlighting Jamal's story. During his 2020 term, he was critical of Israel, calling what they were doing in Gaza a genocide and being one of the first politicians to demand a ceasefire. So when he ran for re-election in 2024, AIPAC-related PACs spent a record-setting $14 million to fund a challenger to unseat him. For comparison, his 2020 opponent spent under $2 million, meaning that AIPAC poured more than 8 times that amount to defeat him in 2024. It was the same story with Cori Bush when she also called the war in Gaza a genocide. An AIPAC ally spent $8 million against her, and she lost. So it seems AIPAC has real power to force out politicians they don't like. And when it appears to be lose your job or listen to AIPAC, allegedly, it's easy to see why politicians fall in line.
And so they either put their head down or they're more even brazen to say, yes, I'll go with AIPAC on a trip to Israel this recess instead of being with my constituents.
Recently in the news, I've been bombarded by stories of U.S. politicians visiting Israel. I've even heard New York mayoral candidates tripping over themselves to say how often they visit or want to visit Israel.
I would visit the Holy Land.
I would go to Israel.
Yeah, I'd make my 4th trip to Israel.
That's the sound of an American oil company, hard at work.
1 second, guys.
Want to be a part of it? Listen up.
Of course, it's an oil ad too, huh?
Hello.
So yeah,
seems
that clip right there was from the debates when Zohran Mamdani was running, and that was kind of what made everyone really like Zohran Mamdani, because he was the only one who said, I'm not going to make a trip to Israel because I want to focus on New York and the 5 boroughs. Why are candidates for mayor of New York talking about going to Israel? We're not talking about the president, first of all. We're talking about the mayor of New York. And they're, they want to... New York's actually very powerful. The mayor of New York is not like the mayor of Minneapolis, for example, New York's like the highest GDP city ever, I'm pretty sure. You have like Los Angeles, California, which is up there, but it's just weird, and Zohran was the only one who said, no, I won't go to Israel. I'm going to focus on New York. And then they're like, well, do you think Israel has the right to exist? And then he said, I think every country has the right to exist. And then they were like, so you don't then. It was crazy. But he ended up winning partially because of that, because, people do see through the bullshit sometimes. Not to say that Zohran Mamdani is perfect, but in that particular instance, he killed it for sure.
And it made me wonder, are U.S. politicians visiting Israel an unusual amount? So we looked at the numbers. A 2024 study by the University of Maryland found that over 25% of all congressional trips were to Israel. And from 2011 to 2016, congressional members took 1,400 trips to Israel, which for comparison in the same time period, there were 88 to the UK and 154 trips to Japan, which are other countries that we also consider to be our greatest allies. And for Americans in the last couple weeks questioning whether their politicians are controlled by Israel, the news of a 250-person delegation to Israel could not have been worse timing. So does this mean that AIPAC simply outplays every other lobby in Washington, D.C. and should be celebrated for being effective? Or are we looking at something far more dangerous, which would be a foreign influence shaping American policy from the inside?
Is it that bad?
Yes, and it's bigger than AIPAC. A lot of times, there's a couple of arguments that get thrown around here to the uninformed. And one is that Israel is not even the biggest lobby. There's all these other nations that are bigger foreign lobbies than Israel. And it's because Israel's not a foreign lobby because they're not registered. Every other nation has to register their foreign lobby as a foreign lobbying group. And that's how it should be, because that way we have much higher standards for disclosure of where the money's coming from if you're a registered foreign agent. And you can actually look into the history of when AIPAC decided not to register. And it was right when John F. Kennedy got shot in the head.
Yep.
And you can actually go and read.
Dude, this guy is so freaking based. I don't even want to interrupt him. I'm sorry. He's so based, though. Wow.
The original letters themselves of Kennedy's administration messaging, at the time it was called the World Zionist Congress. And they're saying, you got to register, you're a foreign agent, here's it, and they send the paperwork. And they sent the paperwork over the month before JFK got shot.
Why is it not registered as a foreign entity?
The rules have been made easier for...
That is all true, by the way. And also, during that time, JFK was also pushing for them to be transparent about their nuclear weapons that they had, but they said they didn't have. And he said, this is your, like, no more funny games, no more funny business. You will register, you will be transparent, you will allow in visits to see what your nuclear facilities are like. The Ben Gurion, I believe it was Ben Gurion, the guy who was the prime minister of Israel at the time, immediately resigned after reading the letter that JFK sent. And then a couple weeks later, a month later, JFK shot. So, and also there's some declassified JFK files which show that Israel had a big part in it, let's just say. I'm not going to say that was it, but it kind of was, you know? I mean, just look at the declassified files yourself. There's a lot to it.
countries like that we consider to be allies.
Rand Paul is the other guy that I was thinking about. He's like Thomas Massey. He's one of the good ones. He's one of the good ones.
There are also a lot of people that are dual citizenship, so people think of Israel in a different way. There are a lot of American citizens who are also Israeli citizens.
So they're American citizens. So, I mean, if you're an American citizen and you're articulating a point of view, that's your right. So I'm not of the view that these people are not American citizens. They're doing everything legally. They're American citizens. They're lobbying for their interests. They're lobbying for the Netanyahu government's interests because they think that's what benefits America, and they're paying millions of dollars, which under Citizens United is legal. The problem is why we have a political system that has that being legal, and why don't we have more people with the courage to say, I don't care, because if the people are on my side, it's not going to matter.
Okay, now at the end of that chapter, I guess we're going back to Gaza for this one, but I want to say that lady that he talked to who runs the protest organization or the advocacy or whatever, in something in pink, was it? It said she was Jewish, and there's plenty of Jewish people that are against this genocide, you know? And so that's why it's also very harmful to be like Fuentes and be alt-right, or I guess alt-right would be the right term, and just to say you hate all Jews and to say things like that. It's simple. All it's doing is causing division. It's not helping at all, because you are so close to achieving class consciousness and realizing that it's the people versus the elites, and then you blame everything on the Jews, and like you're not getting anywhere with that, you know. And I just needed to say that. Let's full screen this. Not all Jews are to blame for what the state of Israel is doing. The state of Israel is a very specific group. You know, Netanyahu and his administration and all the people surrounded, AIPAC, that is different than all Jews. You can be critical of Israel and critical of AIPAC, critical of Netanyahu, and not be an anti-Semite. But when you say you hate all Jews, that does make... Although I don't like the word anti-Semite, because Semitic people are also Arabs, and, you know, Semitic just, like, you know, there's, like, the original three, you know. who speak the Semitic languages, Hebrew, Arab, and Greek, pretty sure. Is Greek considered Semitic? Either way. Arabs are also Semitic. So if you're anti-Semitic by definition, then, sorry. Oh, I guess this tea got me burping. But by definition, you know, if you're anti-Semitic, then you would also hate Arabs, right? But that's not what they mean at all. So that's why I dislike that word, because it's, you know, by the definition, it's just incorrect. Regardless, you know, you can't hate all Jews, just like you shouldn't hate any group of people, you know? You can be critical of Israel, but don't be hateful, is what I'm trying to say. So just something to keep in mind, that, like, there are plenty of Jewish people that are against this and are probably doing more than you are, advocating for, you know, ceasefire and humanitarian aid to people in Gaza. So think about that. Chapter 2, War in Gaza.
Can you guess where this is?
It looks like the Middle East. No?
Gaza.
Gaza. Wow.
Pretty bombed to oblivion.
Yeah, it's very sad.
What's your reaction to seeing those photos?
Horrific. We were complicit. We gave Netanyahu a blank check. Look, the Hamas terrorist attack was awful. And I said that people who committed those crimes had to be brought to justice and the hostages had to be released. But that happened months in. Netanyahu has been bombing for 2 years. Over 60,000 people killed.
Reports out there estimate that anywhere between 70 to 95% of all housing stock in Gaza is damaged or destroyed. Listen to this
right
tape.
there, before and after. Look at that shit.
95% of all housing.
2 months. Sorry, I had to. 2 months before Hamas and all that happened, you know, this is what we're looking at. Looking at houses, trees, just, this looks like a normal, this could be America, you know, this could be a suburban American. This looks civilized. This looks like, you know, this looks like normal. And then
stock in Gaza is damaged or destroyed.
2 years later, this is what we got. Everything's been destroyed, completely flattened, decimated, bombed to oblivion. Everything's brown, decayed. You know, just a second ago we saw green. Look at this too. Look at this. The difference. Look at these two buildings. The same building. Look at everything around it. Look at the color difference. Look at how everything is just. This is what happens whenever everything gets bombed. It turns gray and just decayed, and you know. Maybe it's edited because I'm looking at this and it looks a little less vibrant, but what you're not thinking about is the dust from all the bombings. So that's probably just covered in dust, and that's what makes everything gray. Regardless though, before, after, right?
Between 70 to 95%.
Destruction of homes leaves Palestinians unable to safely return to Rafah. 92% of housing units and about 70% of all structures destroyed or damaged.
Of all.
And they're talking about putting in Trump hotels and making it a tech city. Green, lush. I think I see a pool there. You know what I mean? Like this is normal suburbia.
Stock in Gaza is damaged.
That's what we got left. Just to clarify, this can't be faked. You know what I mean? And this is from The Guardian. Even if you don't like the Associated Press, that's another journalists, you know, just trying to cover the news. And this is what's left 2 years later.
Destroyed. Listen to this take from Norman Finkelstein, a Jewish scholar whose mother and father both endured the horrors of the Holocaust.
95% of Gaza's housing is gone.
Yeah.
It was estimated that it would take until the year 2050 to just clear out the rubble.
I talked to an IDF commando, and if you look at the IDF position on the war, they are the most precise army in the world. And
it's like another example of why you shouldn't just hate all Jews. Like, that's such an ignorant thing to do. Norman Finkelstein is based, all right? He's super based, you know? He's been against the Gaza occupation and everything since long before this whole war this whole 2023, you know, thing has happened. For probably decades now, he's been very vocal in you know, not wanting people to die, which isn't that bad of a thing, but he's had stones thrown at him. He's the one who's calling against violence, you know, and that's the thing. So that's kind of just like Norman Finkelstein. If you don't know him, if you think all Jews are bad, look up Norman Finkelstein. Based fellow, truly.
are very fair in how they strike.
In researching this story, I spoke with U.S. Navy SEALs, a Canadian soldier, and others who have served overseas. Many of them supported the IDF's claim that Israel is actually taking extra precautions to limit civilian deaths by risking their own men's life to go door to door to warn Palestinians before bombing their homes. By contrast, in wars like Iraq in 2004, my sources say that civilian homes were often hit without warning. And it's worth noting that in the Battle of Fallujah, for example, the deadliest battle in the Iraq War, there was also an estimated 80% civilian casualty rate. And one theory I'm entertaining is that the casualty numbers we are seeing in Gaza aren't unprecedented, but rather is actually typical of urban warfare in densely populated areas, as several IDF soldiers have pointed out to me. The difference today is visibility, that this is the first major urban conflict where smartphone footage is uploaded daily. And if Iraq, Afghanistan, or Vietnam had been broadcast this way, I think the public outrage would have been just as strong. So to me, this suggests that the backlash on Israel isn't necessarily an anti-Semitic double standard, but rather, unfortunately for them, that this is the first time that the world is witnessing the brutality of war in real time on their phones.
First of all, they used 2000.
First of all, we went to war in Iraq. Pretty much every war we did in the Middle East was for Israel. And that's not an unfounded claim. Israel has pushed, just recently when Trump bombed Iran, or maybe it was Iraq, but one of those two, because Israel wanted them to. Very simple. And it was, celebrated as a quick, decisive victory or whatever, and that was the end of it. But that happened in Iraq too. Us saying that what's happening in Israel is not okay is not saying that what happened in Iraq is okay. Simply, what happened in Iraq was awful, and there's really no other way to put that. And it shouldn't have happened. And that's just another war crime by the American government that we have to deal with, However, their argument is that, well, we're not as bad as what you guys did in Iraq, so we're good. But no, that's not the case. You're not good. This is not okay. And also, that thing about going door to door warning people, I've heard stories of them dropping pamphlets, like dropping flyers saying, hey, you guys need to evacuate. We're about to bomb your house. However, with the whole, people were told to stand down on October 7th, that's fishy, right? And it's the same thing with 9/11, which started the Iraq War. And so you got to look at, it's very nuanced, but you got to look at these things. But that's not a good argument. That's not a good argument just to say that, oh, well, we're not as bad as Iraq, so we're good. It's not a good argument at all.
Bombs. You can't be precise when you're using 2,000-pound bombs. Gaza is densely packed. This is just bombing of a city.
Even in this first picture, what I would call the good days, where there's still buildings standing.
Let's just start with one of the reports that's come out in the last few months with 83% civilian casualty rates. What would you say? Are those numbers accurate?
They're not accurate, and I'll tell you why. The United Nations gets their numbers from the Gaza Health Ministry. Who runs the Gaza Health Ministry? Hamas.
If I was an infantry company commander.
So in this age of information, age of AI, age of just crazy advanced technology, it's always been this way, but it's just so much worse now. It's he said, she said. So really, I wouldn't trust anything either side says. What I would trust is this video, investigating, hearing stories from both sides, right? So from my personal investigations, you know what I'm leaning towards, right? But it's still important to hear those people out and to make up your own mind. But it's very he said, she said. He said, she said. So what I would look at is pictures, that are clear. Obviously, they can be AI. I think anyone in their right minds would see that, one side is very clearly lying, and I don't think it's the Gaza side, but that's me personally.
And I had 4 infantry platoons. I was moving into an area to conduct a combat operation where I knew there was enemy. And at the end of it, I killed the enemy, but 83% of the population was dead. I would be tried and sent to Leavenworth for war crimes.
If you're branding yourself as the most precise army in the world, I think those numbers say another story.
It's awful, but we need peace in Gaza. And I don't know how you get peace in Gaza without taking out Hamas.
The food they're eating is not nutritious food. It's aid food. Some of the food has fungus in it and has worms in it. Now they're airdropping these food pallets, which 3 airships equals 1 truck. It's all show. Sometimes the pallets actually drop on people's tents and kill them. So the Gazans have to go through a place where no human can go, okay, where the Israelis have, you know, top-notch surveillance, tanks, drones, soldiers and APCs with machine guns. They have to walk through these corridors that kind of cordon them off like cattle to the aid point. Now you have American mercenaries with machine guns and grenades and tear gas and whatnot watching them. For every, like, for example, 10,000 people, there's only 1,000 pallets of food. So there's this fight to see who can get the food first. And then they have to get corralled through this exit, which is like, just like cattle, right? Exit on the way back out, and on the way back out, the Israelis and the Americans shoot over their heads to corral them out quicker.
Americans are shooting too?
Yeah.
That Hamas has taken that money. We know that for 50 to 60% of every dime that's gone to humanitarian aid. And
not what she said is true, but what the doctor said is true. They shoot at them. The gates that they're like treating them like cattle, which is, by the way, what goyim means. It means human cattle, and that's what Talmudic Zionist Jews believe that we are. They believe we are human cattle. And that right there is a great example. Now, I'm not saying all Jews, but Zionist Talmudic, who, you know, believe in the Talmud, those Jews believe we are human cattle and believe we should be treated as such, as less than human. And that's a perfect example of these gates corralling these, what they think they're animals, so it's okay, but corralling these Palestinian people and shooting over their heads, like you said. Like, you think they're not popping a few in the crowd? You know what I mean? That why is it that every time this happens, there's people laying on the ground dead? Because they're firing into the crowd and making them bust out of there. Regardless, that's just a good example.
Has gotten into the hands of Hamas.
So yeah, starvation is absolutely real. Last week, they even went to a point further than starvation called famine, worst food hunger you can get into. We saw 2 babies in the neonatal ICU, Zainab and Hassan. Yeah, they were at the end stage of their life. We were requesting baby formula to be brought in. And we actually told the doctors who were coming in next to bring in baby formula, and it got confiscated at the Israeli borders. I myself, just being there, for 2 weeks, I lost 12 pounds.
Who says we're gonna starve?
Lost 12 pounds. Greta Thunberg, you know, activist. She was all about climate change for a while. She was gonna go on a humanitarian aid mission to Israel. This might have been disproven. I don't know, but Israel has been blocking aid. You know, there's video footage of it. Greta Thunberg brought attention to it, which is good. So maybe it was false, but what's happening isn't. So humanitarian aid is being blocked. So these civilians who they supposedly care about, who they supposedly tell to flee and all these different things, like, hey, you know, they're letting them know, hey, get out of here, guys, we're about to bomb it, whatever. They're not giving them food. They're not allowing humanitarian aid to come through to give them food. And their reasoning, I'm pretty sure, is probably because Hamas... I'm pretty sure exactly. Their reasoning is that Hamas takes the food before they can get it. You know, it's ridiculous, guys. It really is.
People, so much that they suffer that we're gonna force the surrender. It's sick. And your tax dollars, my tax dollars are funding them because both Biden and Trump gave Netanyahu a blank check.
Israel could not,
tens of billions of dollars, guys.
Not give them humanitarian.
Sorry, I'm mistaken. Hundreds of billions of dollars. More money than you could ever spend in a lifetime.
Israel could choose not to provide humanitarian aid to the Gazans. Did you know that in
I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but freaking every time there's a crisis, more money gets sent to Israel. It's just swept under the rug, like we were talking about earlier.
That the United States did not provide humanitarian aid in Afghanistan or Iraq?
How many kids did you come across with bullet holes or bomb residue?
Yeah, so again, I don't know the exact number. For every 100 patients, I would say 10 to 15 were kids, 10 to 15 were women, and then you have 10 to 15 elderly / handicapped, and then the rest men. Almost in the very young men, just past 18 years old, who are just the strongest person in their family, and they were tasked to go get the food, the aid at these GHF sites, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and they're supposed to walk kilometers in the heat with their sandals or their barefoot, and they're the ones who are supposed to go get it, and they're shot.
Take a look at the writing in blue.
Wow. Highest number of child amputees worldwide? I mean, it's just sickening that we're doing this to kids. What highest number of...
And that's the United Nations. So Is Israel also saying that the United Nations is false? I don't even agree with the United Nations. I don't think there should be like a world government type, world legislation. But are we going to say that they're corrupt or false in this sense? I mean, what would they have to benefit from lying about that? Highest
Child
number.
amputees worldwide. I mean, it's just sickening that we're doing this to kids. What crime did they commit? These are crimes, and there needs to be accountability.
One thing that really stood out to me was the Nasser Hospital, which, according to many reports, is one of the last functioning hospitals in Gaza. And there was a doctor from my hometown that served there as an American, and after he got back, shortly after, it got bombed twice.
Double tapped, some people say triple tapped. On live TV, they killed the rescuers and bombed them. The very stairs that I walked, the very people I work with, medical students, journalists. It's a war crime on TV, but kind of the news cycle's over and we're past that.
It's not a war crime because the
Pay attention to that.
But kind of the news cycle's over and we're past that.
The news cycle's over and we're past that because there's so much shit going on, guys. Just swept under the rug. I mean, I know I said it a lot, but it's really important that you guys get this. We have to like start keeping a list. That's how bad things are, because it'll just be more and more and more. You get desensitized. You stop caring. It's also it is hard to care whenever most people are working multiple jobs and rent's $3,000. Texas, where I live in Texas, is not that bad, but you go to Dallas, you're looking at $3,000, $2,000 for a studio apartment, which is not even a one bedroom. There you have a room that consists of a kitchen, a living room, everything, a bedroom, and then a bathroom, right? So like everything together, and then the only separate room is a bathroom. A one bedroom is a bed and a bath, and then like a living room, kitchen, usually combo. So studio apartments can be like $2,000, maybe even $3,000, depending on which city you're in. So it's hard. It is hard to care about these things, but guys, like, we gotta be on the right side of things, Not
a war crime because the aid workers that were posing as aid workers that were Hamas. We had journalists that are Hamas, but they're posing as journalists. And when Israel finally took them out, and knowingly that the optics is not going to look good, but we can't keep letting them use the disguise in order to continue the warfare against Israel. And then what happens is then you get that reporting on most of the mainstream media that will jump on the story without looking deeply into the facts on the ground and discovering, oh, that guy was a Hamas person.
IDF soldiers often call themselves part of the most ethical army in the world. But would the most ethical army be linked to killing over 240 journalists? According to the UN Human Rights Office, 242 journalists have been killed in Gaza, making this the deadliest war for journalists to cover in history. The most common defense...
Deadliest war for journalists in history. And we're talking history, World War II, World War I, Vietnam, much bigger wars with much bigger consequences, and less journalists died in those wars than in this one. I don't even know if you can even call this a war, but I guess technically that's what it's called, Israel-Hamas war. But let's be real here, guys. It's genocide. It's a massacre, Regardless, highest number of journalists dead.
Here from IDF soldiers is the journalists were Hamas.
I do know that Hamas would have their weapons depots under hospitals. They put citizens at risk.
Let me ask you about this.
Let's just establish some reality, okay?
I don't want to get steamrolled again. If you were in a restaurant with your entire...
I'm not steamrolling you.
A little bit. If you were in a restaurant with your entire family and there was one terrorist in there, would it be acceptable for anyone to bomb that restaurant to kill the terrorist if they also killed your innocent family? Is that ever an acceptable answer?
So war is hell, which is why you want to avoid it. Okay. The only way you end war is you have to defeat the enemy.
To say that they're using civilian grounds, I think is an excuse to invade these areas, to bomb these areas, to level these areas, to get rid of the buildings, to eventually have their plan of occupation and settlement and eradication of the Palestinian people.
Do you think Benjamin Netanyahu is guilty of war crimes?
I think that there's definitely been war crimes committed in Gaza, and that he's the prime minister. But again, the legal determinations the International Court of Justice is going to do, and should be a court and there should be a process.
Every other home in Gaza.
See, even the politicians who aren't pro-Israel, they still know, like the guy who gulped and gave a very political answer, you know, he was watching his words very carefully. You know, you can, because the thing is you can take $0 from AIPAC, but if you know, they'll still kick you out if they don't like you. They'll raise money for another candidate and make sure you're not in office your next term. So really, the entire government is compromised. AIPAC needs to be registered as a foreign agency. Until that happens, which that's like step one, but you know, that's a good step, I would say. Until that happens, I don't think anything is going to change. People are going to keep giving it. He literally said yes without saying yes, because he can't just straight up say, yes, Benjamin Netanyahu is guilty of war crimes. But guess what? I can say it, you know, and maybe not that many people will hear it. Benjamin Netanyahu is guilty of war crimes. There's a reason he's being tried in international courts right now. There's a reason why the guy in charge of his prosecution was found dead like a couple weeks ago. Right? These are real things that happen. He is the reason that people are being starving and dying and being blown to bits. And you know, their excuse for everything is that, you know, oh, there was Hamas there, blah, blah, blah. You know what, man? I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. I've seen too much that proves the contrary. You know, form your own opinions, but I mean, this video that we're watching is very unbiased. You know, he's given information from both sides, and I'm even trying to be a little unbiased. I'm trying. This guy right here, Doran Kedar, professional bullshitter, in my opinion. That congresswoman lady who's like, I don't see any way to end the war without taking out Hamas. Professional bullshitter, right? $130,000 from AIPAC coming out of her mouth right now. That's what that is. Let's continue.
Has like stuff like this. This was gift wrapped in a house in Gaza. We found like hundreds of these. And this is like Hamas terrorist, right? T-shirt, okay? This is like what the kids wear for their summer camps in Gaza, right?
Wow.
And this is recruiting, yeah?
So it's an adult-sized T-shirt, but yeah, the kids are wearing it, sure.
Their summer camp is recruiting for terrorism. Every home had an affiliation for one of the terrorist groups. Who's the masterminds behind all these groups? This right here, the Muslim Brotherhood.
It's easy to label Hamas as terrorists, and they've undoubtedly committed terroristic acts. But let's ask ourselves honestly, what makes a man grow up to hate another country? Because I don't think the Taliban despise Americans simply because we had freedom, but rather because we bombed and occupied their homeland for decades. After all, a freedom fighter only exists when someone feels they have no freedom. And when you look at the reality that Palestinians have faced for several decades, blockades, military checkpoints, homes demolished or taken by Israeli settlers, electricity and water being cut off, and entire generations growing up under occupation, is it really surprising that resistance movements would form? And furthermore, one could argue Israel indirectly propped up Hamas to encourage division in the country and prevent the more reasonable and democratic PLO from uniting the Palestinians. Now, this does not in any way excuse the innocent Israelis dying in the horrific October 7th attacks, but as an American who regrets what my country did in the Middle East since 2001, I do think this context is important to consider.
You got to spend some time with IDF
Couldn't said it better
soldiers.
myself.
I did.
Did you feel they conducted themselves professionally, or did you feel like they had a callous attitude towards killing?
I felt they had a very
Muslims don't hate us because we have freedom. That's like propaganda 101. If you fell for that, I'm sorry. Even before 9/11, we were Desert Storm doing operations in the Middle East, specifically for Israel, bombing, just nothing good, right? So we're consistently, because Israel's our greatest ally, we'll do whatever they tell us to. We're consistently bombing the Middle East. Why do you think Al-Qaeda was formed? Even though, well, before, there's speculation that Al-Qaeda was, you know, funded by Israel. Al-Qaeda says, death to America, death to Israel, yet attacked everyone but Israel, you know, so there's something there. But they don't hate us for no reason, you know. We have been terroristic. In a sense, we have been the terrorists, just like Venezuela. That was a terroristic activities. We should not have invaded them, even if Maduro's a bad leader. You know what I mean? Is these things, you know? Come on, guys. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's is it? Am I saying something that crazy? You know what I mean? Is it really that crazy to say that? You know? They don't hate us just because we're free or whatever.
I would call it an inhumane approach to killing. When I first got into Gaza on the 24th of May, I was at site number 1, and an IDF infantry squad was moving past the area. He was like, hey, and he spoke in a Boston accent. I was like, oh, you're Israeli? And he was like, oh, I'm from Boston, I'm here serving in the IDF. An American serving in the IDF. And he's like, oh, you're part of the...
Similar to Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent who shot Renee Good, was ex-IDF, you know, just saying.
New American food thing? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, why are you feeding our enemies? And I was like, well, I think we're here to prevent Hamas from getting the food. And he was like, everybody here is our enemy.
What Anthony is pointing out is a little unsettling. There are Americans, not dual citizens, who go to Israel to serve in the IDF. I've personally spoken with 3 of them. And folks, to be precise, these guys are not acting as paid mercenaries. They are enlisting as soldiers in the IDF. Now, I can understand a Jewish American having a profound emotional tie to Israel, a nation central to their heritage, faith, and identity. But let's flip the perspective. Imagine Americans taking leave from their jobs in Boston or California, traveling to China to become Chinese soldiers and fight under the Chinese flag for a few weeks, then returning home to resume their American lives. Would that strike you as odd? To me, it raises serious questions. Like, if these Americans are willing to fight for Israel, but not in the United States military, where does their loyalty truly lie?
Because a lot of people are saying we're committing genocide, right? Fact check. Look at the population growth in Gaza since 2023, October 7th, and you'll actually see that the percentile of the population growth has grown.
That sounds almost unbelievable to hear, given the numbers that are coming out of the conflict, that it's not people dying there, it's actually the population's growing and flourishing. While 1.9 million people are displaced, there's near famine and starvation conditions.
Yeah,
That's where it
so-
feels like we're getting propaganda. That's impossible.
That's right, you're getting propaganda. So these are facts I'm giving you, right? It doesn't mean people aren't dying.
In fact, now they're creating these humanitarian cities, corridors,
of the
which are
earth.
basically concentration camps. And they want to eventually get everyone from the north of Gaza down south to Rafah into these camps where they can come in, but they cannot leave unless they voluntarily emigrate to a different country.
And by the way, a refugee camp was just recently bombed as well.
Yeah.
When you look at that in terms of, okay, what is a concentration camp? Well, when you take a population away from where they live, and you take the population away from...
That was good. Look at that side by side. Nazi Germany and Palestine.
When you look at that in terms of, okay, what is a concentration camp?
Nazi Germany. People loaded up on a cart. Palestine.
When you take
Nazi Germany, concentration camp.
population
Palestine.
away from where
Nazi Germany. Not sure what this is. This is just the ghetto, I'm guessing.
they live,
Palestine. Yeah. Pretty similar, wouldn't you say?
and you take the population away from where they live in the whole country, and you concentrate the entire population into one area, onto one camp, that is a concentration camp.
How much are you risking right now by coming out and speaking about this?
Everything. My reputation, my health, my safety, my future, everything that I worked for 25 years in uniform, to the reputation that I built in terms of being a patriot.
Why do you think the world is allowing this to happen?
Complacency.
I'm not saying Israel hasn't made any mistakes, okay? Because that's the other thing that people
Holy
don't understand.
backtrack.
Journalists have died covering Israel.
There you go.
Covering this war.
Give them the facts.
than in any modern conflict.
Has your feed been flooded by videos? A girl carrying a bucket.
Look at that backtrack. He started the interview like, yeah, you know, it's all propaganda, blah, 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 blah. Now, I'm not saying Israel hasn't done anything wrong, but, you know, like, fucking professional bullshitter, dude. Give him the facts, Tommy. Good shit, bro.
Bomb, hospital, bomb,
Yes.
aid station, hit by an IDF truck, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
When we ask people on the Israeli IDF side, they say that's Hollywood, that's fake.
Well, they're just wrong. I mean, I'm not going to defend every single video, because then they're going to put up one video that actually was fake.
Pallywood, it's a funny concept, and it's very creative. But I was there for 2 weeks, and hundreds of other physicians, surgeons, pediatricians, nurses, healthcare workers, aid workers from the West, from America, from the UK, from Australia, from Germany were there. And to say we are all liars and it's all Pallywood and we are part of that Pallywood is just obscene.
All of the IDF soldiers I spoke to brought up the claim of what they called Gaza wood or Bollywood, or in other words, there being a lot of fake, staged, or AI videos used to turn people against Israel. Here are some of those clips. And after seeing some of these videos, I do agree something feels staged or off. However, most would argue, as with any war, propaganda is used by both sides, and this still does not negate the hundreds of real and horrible videos we've all seen circulating our feeds where refugee camps and children are getting blown up, entire cities appear to be bombed out, and the countless other examples of humanitarian carnage.
Iran-backed Hamas terrorists have been holding civilians hostage for 706 days.
So this is really the crux of the conflict right now, according to the official U.S.-Israel narrative, is until everyone here is released, we will not stop, which I think is fair. If my people are somewhere else and they're being tortured or whatever it is, you want them back. There's no question about it.
I mean, these people were innocent. They were at mostly a music festival. The part of this conversation that gets left out so often is that on day one, Hamas offered to free all the hostages. The only request was that Israel does not enter Gaza.
These people
Tragic
matter.
story.
If you are on the Palestinian side of this conflict and you can't say that these people matter, you have lost your touch. You've lost the narrative as well.
I saw reports that there's testimony given by IDF soldiers that they were instructed to stand down between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. on October 7th. Is there any truth to that?
No. There were some troops that were asked to stand down. My unit, for example, was asked to stand down and not to participate.
So no, but yes. Are you guys hearing this guy for real?
Some troops.
And 9 a.m. There's testimony given by IDF soldiers that they were instructed to stand down between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. on October 7th. Is there any truth to that?
Is there any truth to that? So we didn't even say, is this true? We said, is there any truth to that?
No.
No.
There were some troops that were asked to stand down. My unit, for example, was asked to stand down and not to participate in rushing to the scene, and there's tactical reasons for that. The concern was that we would have an attack from the north by Hezbollah and or in Judea, Samaria, and if we...
So there's still some truth to that, though.
All the forces and all the units to Gaza to thwart off the attack that was happening there, we wouldn't have any forces or units to send as a response to the north or to the West Bank in uprisings there.
And folks, the fact is, conspiracy or not, October 7th attacks left over 1,000 innocent Israelis dead, and that bloodshed continues to fuel Israel's campaign to root Hamas out of Gaza.
What's the solution with Palestine? You want to propose a...
Well, the whole Old Testament, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I mean, don't you think you've gotten that? We're talking a tragic 1,000 Israelis dead, that innocent Israelis dead, tragic. But we're talking, what's the total death count? I mean, obviously they'll disagree with this, but total Palestinian, damn it, death toll since this is just since 2023, by the way, guys. You know, all these suggestions are saying, well, you know, since 1948, since 1967, whatever. But since 2023, from October 7th, 2023 to January 2026, and just the Gaza Strip, 71,300 people with an additional over 1,000 deaths in the West Bank, right? So, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth has been fulfilled. So that's their religion, you know, but whatever. All right.
Palestinian state. What does that mean for Palestine, and what does that mean for Israel feeling protected that another October 7th isn't going to happen again?
Well, that should be the policy: no October 7th again. That and not militarily eliminate Hamas, which is where Netanyahu's policy is. It means Israel is a secured state, Jewish homeland, democratic state for the Israeli people. Palestine, no Hamas. Democratic elections, demilitarized, is a Palestinian state with the help of Jordan and Egypt and other Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, to help make sure that it is secure, that it isn't overtaken at all by terrorists or Hamas, and that it will not threaten Israel. And it recognizes Israel's right to exist as a Jewish homeland. And people say that's hard. Yes, it's hard, but we have to...
Guys, I want to show you something real quick. This is going to be a map of the Holy Land before World War II. Pre-WW2. Palestine, or the Holy Land, or the land of Canaan. This is what it was called, Palestinians. So before the state of Israel was given after the Holocaust and after World War II to the Jews, this is what it was. This land wasn't empty. There were people already here. So there has to be some sort of reasonable, being reasonable, let's coexist. You know what I mean? But no. This land was given to us, so it's ours, and you need to leave or die. I mean, straight up. And since we're on it, let's go ahead and look up the list of war crimes, just so you guys know. Let's see. List of war crimes by Israel. Israeli war crimes, Israeli violations tracker. Here, so here's the Wikipedia. 1948 to 1966. 1948 Palestine War. Around 700,000 Palestinian Arabs, or 85% of the total population of the territory Israel captured, were expelled or fled from their homes. Dozens of massacres, crop burning, water deprivation, typhoid epidemics, psychological warfare, Israeli well poisoning. Guys, they have a habit of poisoning the well. There's even some thought by scholars that the Black Death, the plague, was caused by well poisoning. So many historians consider the events of 1948 to fit the definition of ethnic cleansing. Between 10 and 70 massacres occurred during the 1948 war. And so a massacre, it doesn't mean that a bunch of people died, but it means unarmed women and children died, right? So 10 major massacres with more than 50 victims each. Killed roughly 800 Arab civilians and prisoners of war in 24 massacres. Palestinian researcher lists 33 massacres, half of them occurring during the Civil War period. And this is literally, they got the Holy Land and immediately started war, So there's something to be said there. And then let's go ahead and, so this is, that's pretty much happening there. Let's go to 1967 to 2005. 6-Day War, 1967, pretty close to when JFK bit the dust. It's interesting. IDF killed surrendering soldiers, Egyptian POWs, and civilians. Not to mention like the 6 other countries that Israel bombed like last year, during the conflict. They bombed Qatar, Turkey, Yemen, right? All the surrounding areas, because it's a part of a greater Israel. So you guys get this, you can look at this, and just so you know, it's not just on Wikipedia. We can go to American Friends Service Committee, Israeli Violations Tracker. So I believe this is just for what's happened in the past 2 years, right? War Crimes Archives. Welcome to the United Nations. So majority are speaking of what's happening right now, which makes sense. But we want to look up let's just look up this one, the Beit Jala massacre, right? So look up Beit Jala massacre. 1952. I don't want to. I'm trying to get something that isn't Wikipedia, guys. Copy. And then paste and search. Okay, make me freaking spell it then, huh? Beit Jala massacre. 2001. This is PBS. 6 Palestinians killed in clashes with Israeli forces, right? So obviously those numbers aren't a lot. But there's still massacres. Bethlehem massacre. 1952. January 26th, which coincided with the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ in the Eastern tradition, Eastern Christian denominations. Coincidence? I think not. Israeli patrol detonated a house near the village of Beit Jala, 2 kilometers from the city of Bethlehem. This led to the martyrdom of the homeowner and his wife. near the Orthodox monastery, right? So these are other websites too, right? So this isn't just Wikipedia, because some people say Wikipedia can be falsified or whatever, but it's actually very hard to falsify Wikipedia. And if you do, it only lasts a few seconds. They take it down real quick. So that right there, you know, this has been happening for a very long time. This isn't just a recent event. Just saying. Let's get back to this video.
Towards peace. There's no other alternative.
Was there another American political commentator recently speak on podcasts about the disruption and dissent against Netanyahu before October 7th?
Yeah.
Who was that?
Charlie Kirk.
There's many young men in America that are actually questioning and I think have decent reason to ask that Israel is on the suspect list of who killed Charlie Kirk.
Which is insane.
Now, that is straight conspiracy, you know. The official story is Tyler Robinson and all that. But, as it showed in the beginning of this video, I know it's been a while, but, you know, Charlie Kirk was heavily pro-Israel for the longest time. He started questioning. He asked, was there a stand-down order on October 7th? He said they're trying to ethnically cleanse Gaza. Literally, like a week later, he's dead, right? Kind of. I don't want to compare Kirk to JFK, but it's a similar situation here, you know? Now, that is conspiracy, though. That is not fact.
Where did you get that? The mainstream media that are.
The mainstream media is not saying that at all, dumbass. No, this is some like, you know, this is not mainstream media talk that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. I'm really trying to be nice here. God.
To throw Israel under the bus into another.
It's almost as bad as Trump, you know. Fake news, dude. This is ridiculous.
Seriously, they also said that Israel is behind 9/11. Of course, Israel also controls the mainstream media, right? Also Israel controls all the banks. That's why Israel demonizes Israel on the mainstream media. Make perfect sense,
so which
right?
one is it? Is it kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, just use common sense.
Switch to TurboTax and file your own taxes free in the app if you didn't file with us last year. Just file with TurboTax Do-It-Yourself by February 28th. Download now.
This mouse backpack is the
Sorry
best
about the
I've
ads,
ever
guys.
used.
Introducing the Mouse X Mercedes AMG.
There's a lot of Americans that are starting to question how much control the Israeli government has over our administration. I mean, you talk about the freedom of speech. You talk about there's contractors in certain states that if the state boycotts Israel, the contractor can't work for them or they can't receive aid money if their house gets hit by a tornado. What is going on?
So this is another very emotional.
In Texas, you are not allowed to boycott Israel as a business. They will. If your city boycotts Israel, you will not really receive aid fund, right? And Texas isn't the only state either. But I talk about Texas a lot because I'm from Texas. But straight up, Texas, you know, rah, we're like the most American you get, you know, whatever. Like that's the whole, you know, Texas, you know. But if you boycott Israel, if your city boycotts Israel, you're not allowed to receive humanitarian aid. Like an example of a hurricane or an earthquake or something, or a flood. Huntsville, Texas, I'm pretty sure it was, you know, a few years back. This happened to them. Businesses aren't allowed to boycott Israel. They won't be supported by the government at all. So stuff like that. So it makes you think, who are we really loyal to?
Issue, and you know, I'll get grief just for saying this, but boycotting something is an American tradition. Not only did we boycott the British tea, we dumped it in the harbor, you know, but there were boycotts at the time of everything British. Israel's per capita income rivals Europe, rivals ours. I mean, they've done incredibly well. They're smart, they're talented, they work hard.
The innovation that's coming out of there.
And the what?
The innovation that's coming out.
Innovation from tech, all of that stuff. But that's also a reason why we shouldn't have to subsidize everything they do.
It is really hard to get U.S. politicians to speak about Israel or AIPAC. Many staffers shut us down the moment that we said we wanted to talk about those subjects, even if they previously said their senator was available for an interview. I mean, just watch this exchange on Breaking Points with Michigan Senator Elisa Slotkin.
Do you think AIPAC should register as a foreign lobby?
I don't know the answer to that. I think that I know plenty of people who think they should. I don't.
It's kind of a cop-out answer, don't you?
I mean, yeah. I literally, I just guess I'd have to look at the definition. I certainly have had my tough moments with that organization, and
so you stop accepting their funding.
You gotta get your facts straight.
Senator Slotkin has taken $656,000 from AIPAC-linked groups, so it's no wonder she dodged these questions, and she's not alone. This is how the vast majority of our politicians are operating right now, and it just makes this whole thing weird, because if this is the right move and Israel is truly our greatest ally, then why are they so afraid to speak on it? It doesn't make any sense.
We were just talking to a lot of senators' teams, and they said, yeah, you can talk to the senator, but one thing you cannot ask about is Israel. What's your take on that?
Well, I think for a lot of our elected politicians, Israel is a sensitive subject. That's concerning, because I think that when you ask somebody, what can I not talk about, the answer is, then you know who controls you. We can't talk about Israel. Why not? We give them our tax dollars. We fight in their wars. Is it money? Is it religion? Is it politics? Is it power? Is it a combination of all of them? I don't know. But in my mind, there is not a dollar amount on the planet worth turning a cheek to a genocide.
Israel is an extremely useful asset to have in the Middle East, both from a Western Empire domination perspective, as well as from a money-making, deal-making, political maneuvering perspective.
That's Bill Clinton with Netanyahu. So I saw a funny video today. It was like a parody of Stan by Eminem, and it's this guy writing a letter to Trump. He's like, "Dear Mr. Trump, you're my favorite president. Since the capture of Maduro happened, I was really hoping you could capture this particular leader. He is a dictator who has stayed in office for like 20 years, and he's outdoing your genocide, or he's outdoing your, killing or whatever." That's Netanyahu. So he's been in office at least since Bill Clinton's been in office. I'm pretty sure he was there longer too. All right, so that's just something to think about.
It's very useful to have a nuclear-armed nation that depends on us for foreign aid and for their very survival in many ways. They're working on our behalf.
Like I said, there's a lot of technology connections. If you use an iPhone, you probably have a lot of stuff on there that comes from Israel. And there is a connection in terms of culture. I mean, the religious foundations.
To understand America's support for Israel, you have to look at the country's deep ties with American evangelical Christians. You see pastors like Kenneth Copeland funding Israeli surveillance, while others like Greg Locke are openly calling for Gaza's destruction.
Israel should make the Gaza Strip.
These are all false preachers, by the way, and Jesus talked about them. He said, there will be false teachers, and their punishment's coming. Don't worry, but you know a person by their fruits. You know a tree by its fruits. You know a person by their actions, by their deeds. Kenneth Copeland, dude, look into his eyes. There's no soul. And this is the first I'm hearing of this guy, but if he calls for the destruction of any type of place or people, then I wouldn't call that very Christian, So something to think about.
A parking lot by this time next week.
It's evident that many on the Christian right, like Greg Locke, are openly calling for Gaza's destruction.
Israel should make the Gaza Strip a parking lot by this time next week.
It's evident that many on the Christian right fiercely defend Israel, and it's worth asking why. One theory is because evangelicals interpret biblical prophecy to mean Israel's survival is directly tied to the second coming of Christ. They take verses like Genesis 12:3, Ezekiel 37, and Revelation 16 to...
Let's read it. So I will bless those who bless you, and curse whoever curses you, I will curse. So, Ted Cruz says it a lot. Even Charlie Kirk said it a lot whenever he was very pro-Israel. And, those who bless Israel will be blessed. When Jesus came, though, and, I'm pretty sure Paul mentioned it too, the New Testament says that the Church of Christ is the new Israel. When the people of Israel put Jesus on the cross, demanded that he be crucified, and before that, he was beaten and flogged within an inch of his life, and then he was already going to die. I mean, it was very clear, and then they still said, crucify him, This is historical evidence, by the way. Pontius Pilate, this really happened, They did that to him, and they lost citizenship, or whatever you want to call it. They are no longer the people of Israel. The people of Israel is the Church of Christ, right? And this is biblical, what I'm saying. Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say our bones are dried up, and our hope is gone. We are cut off. The great city split into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations collapsed. God remembered Babylon the Great and gave her the cup filled with the wine of the fury of his wrath. So Revelation's really hard to read whenever you only take one verse out of context. Let's see what he says about it.
Really conclude that the end times will be centered around a battle for Jerusalem. So for many of these evangelicals, supporting Israel is not just a political stance, but it is a way of aligning with what they believe is God's unfolding plan for history.
Every president in recent memory, from Obama to Bush to Trump to Clinton, says Israel is our greatest ally. Why do you think they say that?
Even before that, Reagan, every single one. Nixon was probably the last president who was semi-critical of Israel, and look what happened to him, Watergate, you know? So, I mean, every president since JFK, I'd say, is Israel's our greatest ally. We have never, there's a quote, Reagan literally says, we have never shied away from our allegiance to Israel, you know? So not just modern, too. It's been happening for a while.
Israel has been a staunch ally in the Middle East. They continue to be that way. But what has happened with the state of Israel is it has come under the control of a right-wing extremist who's not interested in peace. And that has led this country to where it is now committing genocide.
Are they our asset, or are we theirs, or a combination?
Isn't that the question? The Zionists would say that it's a partnership, right? The Zionists would say that we love Israel and Israel loves us and we support each other and we both promote Western values and we're both, he's the only democracy in the Middle East, right? Sort of. Assets.
I like how he said sort of. Hold on one second, guys. Hey, I'm streaming. All right, I love you. Drive safe. Okay. Let's rewind that.
He's the only democracy in the Middle East, right? Sort of.
Sort of. Like I mentioned, Netanyahu's been in office for forever. So is it really a democracy?
Assets are relationships based on manipulation, coercion, control, inherently. Allies is a relationship built on friendship and shared growth and shared gain. And ally is a word that I would not use to describe Israel. Do allies spy on each other secretly? Maybe. Do allies spy on the terrorists that conducted 9/11 and then not tell you what they're seeing? Maybe. Do allies send Jeffrey Epstein into the White House 17 times to apparently develop a relationship with the President of the United States and then probably blackmail him? Definitely not.
And let's just say we do want to be
Dude,
allies with Israel. Are we not able to hold them to standards that we should hold every other country to for war? Yeah, war is ugly. I get that. And you got to take out what they view as the bad guy, the militants. Okay, if you were taking them out specifically.
As Americans, what do we want in our legacy? We want to be honorable people who defended the voiceless, who defended the downtrodden. That's kind of our story. We're always rooting for the underdog. And then when it comes to this genocide, we are aiding and abetting the eradication of civilians. And I think us American citizens want the best for people, for humanity.
Yeah.
One big thing Americans need to think about as we continue to fund Israel and stand.
Let's look at that real quick.
I've seen plenty of power banks over my 15 years of reviewing tech, but this Ridge one quickly became a favorite. So this?
Okay, let's look at that real
For
quick.
humanity.
Yeah.
One big
Total U.S. aid by country from 1946 to 2022. Israel is breaking the scale over $300 billion, right? Over, I'm going to assume that they stopped it there because that's where it is, but you never know, it might have gone over. The closest one, Vietnam, is not even 200 billion, right? And that's still a lot, but it's quite disproportionate. It's almost double the second runner-up.
Americans need to think about as we continue to fund Israel and stand by during the destruction of Gaza is this. Is our support of them helping us or hurting us on the world stage? Can we honestly say that backing Israel is winning us allies, or is it isolating us and turning much of the global community against the United States? Because at some point, we have to ask whether our loyalty to one nation is costing us the respect of the rest of the world.
The thing that makes conversation about Israel so complicated is that we are having this conversation inside of an information war. We are in the nexus of one of the largest propaganda campaigns the world has ever known, because there is an entire nation's future on the line. And so the first thing you need to understand in order to understand anything about the Israel conversation is that Israel knows that winning the hearts and minds of the American people is the most important victory that they can possibly have on the battlefield. And they spend billions of dollars targeting American minds through politics, through media, through brands, through celebrities, through every piece of messaging that they can possibly use. Because if America starts to genuinely question our relationship with Israel in any meaningful way, Israel has to rewrite their entire playbook of how they do what they do and what their goal is.
Folks, the truth is this is a very complicated issue that would take an entire college course or hundreds of podcasts, I feel like, to really understand what we're talking about. So this would just be the tip of the iceberg, a springboard for you to start your own investigation. But I want to empower you, the viewer. You also are a journalist in a way, or an investigator. When you speak with your friends, when you look up things online, you are also discovering the truth for yourself. So take nothing I say as the truth. Figure it out for yourself. But hopefully this points us in the right direction to ask questions that a lot of us feel deep in our gut, like something is off here, something is wrong here, and I will not be intimidated into not asking questions. After all, I'm a goddamn American. I feel fiercely proud to do this because so many people sacrificed their lives that we have this freedom. So may we always have it, or may we fight for it. Love you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Wow. What a based individual. Tommy G, probably never going to see this, but that's an excellent show, or excellent video. I appreciated that you interviewed both sides. You were very unbiased, and yeah, let people make their own decisions or conclusions. Yeah, and that is it. Ian Carroll, is that his name? Ian Carroll, I think so. Let me look it up. Ian Carroll, if memory serves. Oh well, that's not him. Okay. Yeah, independent researcher Ian Carroll. So like this. Researcher. So he was on the Joe Rogan Experience. Wow, guys, hold on. I am about to pee myself. So it's pee break time. We will be right back. Hey, I'm just double checking on you to make sure you're all right. I'll see you when you get here. I love you. Be extra careful, okay? Alright, I'll see you soon. Bye. Woo! I don't know if I could have held that 1 second longer. Maybe it's some TMI, but whew. Damn. Well, yeah, guys, so that was the investigation into the Israeli influence in American politics. And also, I didn't know it was going to be this, but also an investigation into the war or genocide or humanitarian crisis in Gaza. So once again, Tommy G, good stuff. Ian Carroll, holy based. I didn't even know you existed, dude. I'm going to have to look into you. That's incredible. I didn't hear one bad thing, honestly. One thing for sure that I agree with is do your own research, look at both sides, do your own research, fact check everything, come to your own conclusions. One thing we should be able to have is reasonable, rational discussions. Talk to your friends. Let's all try to be more sober-minded, more vigilant, and this is one of many things to focus on, but don't allow yourself to be distracted,